Hey there, it's Andrew, and today I'm going to do a follow-up to a video that I released on July 4th, the 250th anniversary of Independence Day in America. I released a video on that day. I titled it "The Passing Away, a Dream, Trump, America, the Republican Party." Okay, so if you haven't seen that video, please go back and watch it. I don't really know how detailed I'm going to get in this video with it. Um, well, yeah, I'll just go ahead and recap it. So, on July 3rd, the eve of the 250th anniversary of the United States, I had a dream that was very interesting, and I felt like I needed to record it on July 4th. I may not have actually released it July 4th. I may have actually released it or published it later that night after it became July 5th. But I recorded it on July 4th, so you can go back and see the date. But either way, it's not like I was on my knees praying, God, show me a vision for this country, give me some kind of words so that we have. It wasn't anything like that. I was just asleep, and this is what he seemed to show me. Okay, so the dream, speeding through it because I really want to go back and pause and give some extra thoughts on the things I saw in the dream, and then actually connect it to some events happening currently, and then connect it to kind of get ready for another video I want to do about a third party forming in the United States, potentially. So, the reason why the dream was called The Passing Away is because the premise of the dream is that I saw President Donald Trump pass away. Okay, he had roughly about a year left in office, maybe a year and a half at max, but actually maybe even a little less than a full year in office. So he's getting to the end of his term, of his time in office. I saw him pass away, and it wasn't. It seemed like it was of natural causes. It seemed like there was no foul play. It definitely was not like a JFK or Charlie Kirk kind of scenario, okay? But if there was foul play, it wasn't obvious. There would have been questions. There was some possibly ambiguity to it, but the way that at least the public saw it, or the way that it was presented to me, it was natural, and I think there's a reason for that. And I'm going to get into something here very interesting about that in just a second. So, he passes away, and I saw specifically his son Barron Trump was very upset about it. I'm not saying other people wouldn't be upset. I didn't, and of course there's people who just hate the man, of course, and so, there's going to be people that be cheering and just acting gross about it, because no matter what your political side or thing, it's like, we don't need to. That kind of behavior is just gross, okay? So. But regardless, I didn't see anything about that, right? That wasn't the highlight of the dream. It wasn't like he was trying to show me how everyone was feeling, the pulse of the country, in the aftermath of that. But I specifically saw Barron Trump. And then in the dream, I thought about how J.D. Vance would be the next president, obviously because he's the vice president. That's the job of the vice president, is to take up the mantle, if that ever happens to the president, or if he were to step down for any kind of emergency, medical, whatever it might be. That's his job. Okay. So I knew that J.D. Vance was going to take the reins, and what was interesting is I specifically had this feeling in the dream, as it was happening, Gerald Ford, okay, and we'll talk more about Gerald Ford later, yeah, so putting a pin right there in the dream, it's that scenario, sometimes when people have dreams, it's oh my gosh, it's like a unicorn, and then I started, just weird things in dreams that obviously are not literal in this realm, but they could be highly symbolic or metaphorical and still very real, but in that metaphorical sense. And so the odd thing about this first half of the dream regarding passing away, okay, is yeah, that's a scenario that could play out and could happen. Am I saying that I believe it will, or am I saying to look out for it, or am I saying 100% it will, thus saith the Lord? It's no, that's not what I'm saying. I'd actually be surprised if it did. But what I'm saying is it's just interesting how there was this aspect to it that had a sense of reality or tangibility to it, But I think simultaneously, it definitely has like a strong metaphorical or symbolic kind of sense to it. At least the passing away of a legacy. Like if there's anything, he, pray for the president, whether you like him or not, or whether your opinion is nuanced about him. I think there's a lot of people. We live in such a world, or at least a country, at least the United States, where you're all in or you're all out. It's this or that, and I think people can have nuance where it's like, well, I like that a certain party or candidate or elected official, I like these things they've done. I don't like these things they've done. I may not like the way he says this, but I like that he ended up getting this done. Or I used to like this about him, now I don't like this about him. Or I used to not like this, but actually over time I do like this. Whatever it is, right? Nuance. So, Scripture talks about praying for your elected leaders to be able to, have peace in the land, have a peaceable life. That doesn't mean a boring life. It just means you have that ability for peace to be able to go out and to share the gospel, to be a light to people, to utilize, those conditions that the government may bring. Not that we depend upon or rely upon government for things that are outside of its scope. Anyways, I digress. But pray for the president, even if there's plenty of things about the president that I'm like, yeah, policy-wise, that's not what I would have done. That's not good. But it's like, man, I still want to pray for the guy, because what I think it's showing me in terms of the dream is like the passing away of his legacy. So it's like anything good. It's like he's in this era, this period right now where it's like anything good that he was working towards or building, it's like it's being stripped away. It's like that legacy won't matter really soon. It's like he's working against the things he maybe initially proposed or started or whatever. I'm not trying to do super deep analysis of policy or anything. What I'm just trying to show you is that metaphorical sense of like that passing away of legacy or any kind of progress in certain things he may have made, whatever. So, okay, get through that part of the dream now. Okay, so here's another thing that I may not have highlighted or really mentioned much about in the last video is like this sense of passing away, right? Like if it is literal, or perhaps even if it's not, it's like the sense that I got from it was like God like him having a role in like okay, like based upon what's happening and what you're letting into the world, like I'm gonna move you out of the way, like come on home or go, whatever, God is the judge, Jesus, that's between him and God in terms of like his personal, where he ends up, or any of us, right? I said this last time, this isn't a pro-Trump, it isn't an anti-Trump thing, it's neither of those things, it's above that. It's just me being like, I saw this thing, I want to be faithful to what I feel like God is saying and doing in presenting it. And I don't care if I look foolish. This actually isn't about predicting events. That's not what any of this is about. It is literally just me being like, I'm a fool for Jesus. I'm getting to a place where it's like, all right, I can't care about my reputation. I've got this one life. I'm connected to my Creator. I serve Him, and I speak and do these things at His pleasure, and He can do with it whatever He wants. So yeah, I want the president to be healthy and make good choices and be a righteous man and do things that God wants. But if he doesn't want to do that, then that's his prerogative. And any other Republican or any other Democrat or anyone in any third party or any leader of any country, that's their prerogative. They can choose to be righteous and serve God or not. I want them to. I want every person to. I want every person to know Jesus, to know their source of life, their source of, who created them. That's what I want for everybody, from whether you're famous and well-known and wealthy to the unknown person on the street. Doesn't matter. So I just want to make that very, very clear. Probably is to a lot of you, so apologies if I harped on that too much. But to make it really clear, because I think there is a culture around people trying to give words or dreams or visions, and it's like that's I want to move past that. I'm just trying to just serve God and just be honest with things I've seen, and whatever happens, happens, right? Ultimately, pray about it. It's a call to prayer. All these things are calls to prayers. All these things are calls to get closer to Jesus. So, moving on from that, now that I've really gotten that off my chest, right? So you've got all that with Donald Trump, and so, like I said, it was God kind of like, he may be in a critical moment where he's got choices to make, and based upon his choices, once again, whether literal or metaphorical or both, God may just be like, okay, like, based upon your choices, this is what I'll do now, or this is what I'll allow to happen now. Okay. Now, moving on to what I saw about J.D. Vance in the dream. Like I said, there was something in the dream in which there was a comparison to Gerald Ford. Okay. I thought this was really interesting. So, Gerald Ford is the only president in American history that no one ever voted for. Okay. I think he was, I don't know if he was Speaker of the House or not. I don't remember what he was serving in Congress to some capacity. Okay. So you had Spiro Agnew, I believe, vice president for Richard Nixon. And he resigned, and then Ford got elevated to the position of vice president. And then not much later, Nixon resigned over Watergate, and then Gerald Ford took his place. And then Ford, the theme of Ford's administration was like restoring trust and confidence in the American government, because you had Watergate, you had like the scandal, really multiple scandals, different things going on. And so Ford's thing was like, how do we get trust back from the people into the government. And then Ford did not run again. Okay, like he served out that term, finished, and was like, all right, not going to run. So he never ever received a vote from the people in American history to serve as president, but he did in a season of scandal, or a season of revealing, or a season of mistrust, or just a season of shaking in those regards, right? And so, and with Vance, okay, obviously people voted for him because he's like on the ticket with Donald Trump, okay? So I'm not saying that he didn't get voted for, but it's like, and once again, the dream wasn't clear. I'm just like feeling this thing about Gerald Ford connected to Vance, like kind of like maybe certain, metaphorically, like certain themes or certain patterns linked to that guy, linked between these two men, between those two potential administrations, right? And so maybe what it could mean is, okay, Vance, takes the presidency. If there were a literal scenario where the President Trump either passed away or he himself resigned because of health or some other reason, I don't know. But if Vance were to take the mantle, maybe he didn't run. Like he's like finishing out the term, but then maybe he doesn't run, which would surprise a lot of people. Maybe he steps down and tries to let someone like Marco Rubio. I'm not saying I like Rubio per se, for or against. That's not what any of this is about. It's so there's just like a hypothesis, since Vance, Rubio, those are some names thrown around within that establishment Republican sphere. Okay, so there could be something similar where he does something expected, where if he does finish out the remainder of the term but doesn't run again, that could be very shocking to a lot of people. And that doesn't mean he wouldn't run ultimately. Like maybe he finishes the term, steps down, then there's someone else like a Rubio or whoever, or maybe a Democrat takes it, I don't know, or a third party, who knows, I don't know. But there could be a season where there's another term or two, and maybe then Vance runs again. Maybe he gets it, maybe he doesn't, I don't know. But just something odd that just kind of upsets the norm of sort of how these things go, right? But additionally, though, I also am thinking as well, like, there's a lot of distrust in, the American, like, government amongst the people for the American government right now. Both sides, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. And a lot of it, I think, really comes back to the Epstein files, and people may say, well, that you're probably familiar with like the talking points where it's like, well, we moved on past that, like, okay, so much of it's revealed, but there's still a lot that isn't, and it's like, okay, even if it is revealed, like, what can we do about it, or all this stuff, right? And so, but at the very least, it's gotten people to wake up to the fact that, like, your intelligence agencies and different branches and spheres within the government do terrible things that's hidden from you, on your taxpayer dollars, right? And so it's that theme of mistrust. And so it's like the idea of Ford trying to bring back this sense of trust between, the American government and the people, and really in a way, perhaps by the extension, the people of the world, since, things that America, the United States does, has great effect and great bearing upon the rest of the world. Now, am I saying that Ford accomplished what he wanted to do? Am I saying that, like, he actually did implement changes in which the government should be trusted, and then it just decayed again over time? That's not necessarily what I'm saying. I've not, like, since that last stream I have done some research into Ford and the Ford administration to be able to tell you the things I've been telling you. I'm not saying he necessarily accomplished that. That's something for political analysts and historical analysts to debate about and talk about. But what I'm saying is that was just kind of like a theme. It was something in the pulse of society, and I think Vance may be aware of that or will become aware of that. And I think that's in contrast to, whether he actually does something or is just playing a cover-up game, that would be his choice. But this feeds into, ultimately, the next part of the dream, in which, by the way, there's one more thing I'll say about Gerald Ford, is that he was the first sitting U.S. president to visit Japan. There are other presidents that had visited Japan after their presidency, for sure, maybe before, but I know Ulysses S. Grant, during like the Reconstruction era, after the Civil War, former Union general that became president, he visited Japan. He wrote extensively about Japan. Ulysses S. Grant is like a really interesting character, but I digress. Ford was the first sitting U.S. president to visit Japan. And once again, if we're talking about perhaps potential parallels or symbolic or metaphorical parallels or patterns between these times in history or these people, whether Vance would literally go to Japan or not, it's not what I'm saying, but I think our relationship with Japan, especially if you've been following the news at all, like with Prime Minister, I think her name's Takaichi in Japan, that relationship between the United States and Japan is going to be important. Japan, what it does on the world stage, China's eyes on Japan, on Taiwan, but including Okinawa. There's all kinds of things. Like, Japan is increasingly becoming important. It's always been an important player in the world, but I think that aspect of like Ford's presidency, him going there, a recognition of Japan, I think is also like an interesting potential parallel as well with events that we're seeing right now. So that's just like my thoughts on that first part of the dream, and then the second part. Once again, there's this significant change in the dream where there's an ambiguity of like literal, metaphorical, both, and then it becomes strictly metaphorical in this like midway point in the dream, where I see the next president getting sworn in, but it's not Vance. It's just someone I don't know. But I felt instinctively like it represented just the Republican Party as a whole. They were not being sworn in on the steps of the Capitol or the People's House, the house in which other elected officials are that are beholden to the people. This person was being sworn in front of a building that was like the U.S. Treasury / the Federal Reserve. And I mentioned briefly last time how the Federal Reserve, if you know, it's neither federal nor a reserve. Read The Creature from Jekyll Island by G. Edward Griffin, how this central bank was created to get us off our money being backed by gold and silver, to put us into a system that is not good for us, that at some point eventually has to fail because it's based on fiat currency. go down that rabbit trail. But so it's like this kind of vague, ambiguous, placeholder, central casting type person, I guess if you want to say, Republican Party getting sworn in, not beholden to the people, but beholden unto money, the banks, the Treasury, the Federal Reserve. They're being sworn in, and which, by the way, it seemed to happen so fast. And I know those things like have to happen fast for government to keep on going, but like the way it felt, I'm not saying it wasn't important if, Donald Trump's passing or whatever. Hypothetically speaking about it being like literal. It's not that people didn't care one way or the other, or not that it didn't affect people, or not that people wouldn't write about it in history books, but it's like so many events and things were just moving rapidly that it felt very strange. It's like with how monumental Trump has been in the past 10 years of U.S. politics, it's like you would think that it just felt strange where it's like, whoa, all right, we're already moving on. Like, it's pretty quick. It was a very interesting feeling, right? And once again, that could be metaphorical, moving on from his legacy or certain things he did or whatever. So, anyways, so yeah, this guy's getting sworn in front of the Treasury / Federal Reserve, like a fusion of the two, but he doesn't realize the gravity of the situation. The Chief Justice is trying to swear him in, but like the dude is trying to like shake his hand and like put his hand on his shoulder for a photo op or whatever, and the Chief Justice is like, put your hand on the Bible and raise your other hand, take your oath of office, and get stuff done. Like, this isn't time for whatever you think it is. This isn't time for a photo op. And so it's like the guy like had no substance. And then like finally, like once he got in, it's like he just stuttered and stammered and didn't know what to do, and then incriminated himself. Dude just started like letting secrets come to light. Exposure was coming to light. Like, despite his efforts, despite himself, it's just like, it was like this incompetence of like, stuff started coming to light. And so ultimately, like, I think that's the more interesting part of the dream. I think that's the more perhaps important part of the dream to pay attention to, is the fact that like, like symbolically speaking, it's like a legacy's passing away, and then the Republican Party is going to get exposed for bad things it's done. Because I think that during the era of like Obama, people were waking up to like, okay, the Democratic Party is taking a turn that is going down this route towards an extreme, really even a comical way in a sense. And then when you get to Biden, like definitely it's like there was like a lot of exposure about things in the world of the Democrats. And it's not that there hasn't been for Republicans, but it's like I feel like there's going to be like an extra level of exposure and awakening in the season to come, okay? That God is just really going to use things to shake up the Republican sphere, the Republican establishment. So once again, it's not a left versus right thing. It's not a this or that thing. It's God being like, he wants to expose evil and just for righteousness to come forth, and for people to, when they see the world, like ultimately you're forced to ask like, okay, there's all this evil stuff. So if this evil's pretty intense, and if this evil is even like supernatural in nature, it's like, okay, well, what about God? All right, if we're engaged in this battle of good versus evil, and you got this intense evil to the point where it's not just humans but other entities, like, all right, God, who are you? Who is Jesus? Right? Getting people in that mindset, getting people in that place where maybe they've asked before, maybe they've never asked before, but it's like, all right, you got to look at it again, right? So anyways, like the Republican Party is, that's really, I think, the main message of what that dream was about. Even the stuff specific to Donald Trump, it's like, I'm really looking at this season of exposure for the Republican Party, because there's a lot of like well-meaning people who follow Jesus, believe in Jesus, and it's like, okay, but is the vessel of the Republican Party the best way to, to do things? And it's raining now, which is really, really nice. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but just a really nice, gentle breeze and some rain. And I really like enjoying the rain. I feel very close to God when it rains. Don't want to be talking about, like, gross political stuff, but it's still important. Let me move on to this next part. I think y'all have gotten the point pretty clear. I know I'm just rambling a lot, probably. Hopefully it's interesting. Hopefully it's generating some thought. Getting y'all to ponder, getting y'all to think, getting y'all to pray, getting y'all to seek God. But, so here's where it really gets interesting, okay? So I have the dream on July 3rd. I make the video on July 4th. I publish the video on July 5th. I think that's what I did. Okay. So you can see that the timeline of when this happens. Okay. Then we have Mitch McConnell, who becomes really ill, and now he had been having health problems for a long time, on and off with like the news. Like, there was like this one day he was giving a speech and he went like completely nonverbal, and that was interesting. But yeah, we didn't know anything about his condition for a good several days, a week. I don't know. It was a while. I wasn't keeping up that close with it. But then his wife, who's a Chinese national originally, I guess, or she then like goes to China, weirdly, in the midst of all this, and then comes back. And people were like, "Is Mitch McConnell dead? Is he in a vegetative state? Like, what's going on?" And then because people were like expecting him to pass away, people were expecting him to be gone, and then he is like, "Oh, I'm healthy, I'm here," puts out a post and a picture and whatever. But then Lindsey Graham, Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina, passes away. He's 71 years old. I think he had like just turned 71, and he had just won nomination again in the Republican primary for Senate in South Carolina. I forget how many years he served. I think over a decade, at least 13, if not more, I think. I can't remember, but he's, for as long as, like, because I've been following politics and have been involved in politics, because I used to be involved in a lot of this. That's just a little bit of my background, I guess. But, like, for as long as I remember, Lindsey Graham was there doing stuff, so it's been a long time. But he dies suddenly. His office is like, he had a short illness and then died. Okay? And so there are people being like, well, was there foul play involved? Was he poisoned? Are we going to get like an autopsy report? Are we going to get a toxicology report? He was just in Ukraine, looking at like a drone facility in Kiev, and then that got suffered a missile strike from Russia. And people like Lindsey Graham is like has that reputation for being a war hawk or a warmonger. You don't have to believe that. You can have whatever opinion you want, but it's just interesting how, he was very adamant about supporting Ukraine and supporting Israel, and you can support these countries, but I'm trying to make the distinction, the nuance is like you can want to support or have a benevolent goodwill towards these countries, but you may disagree in the policies of how to go about that, or if you're going to wage war, how to do that, or when should you take a peace deal, or how these things should happen, right? I'm not saying don't support certain countries or whatever, but what I'm saying is he seemed to be of like this extreme, like, let's shoot all the missiles, let's have all the war, let's exhaust that to its max, right? So that was just kind of the reputation Lindsey Graham had. Lindsey Graham also had some strange behaviors where it's like, all right, you're this single older dude who's never been married, and you take a vacation to Disney World, and people have taken pictures of you wandering around, little kids with a bubble wand or something like that. There's all these questions, right? I don't want to get into the weeds of the details of all that. I don't want to, like, say something definitive when it's all, like, speculation. But I'm just saying it's like, that man, Lindsey Graham, just brought up just made people question some things. And my beautiful wife is out here to watch the rain. She also made some delicious muffins that we're going to have. But here's the thing, though. Why am I bringing up Lindsey Graham and all this? What I thought was so strange and so interesting is like that exact scenario that I saw in a dream on the 3rd about Donald Trump. It happened to Lindsey Graham. Sure, he's older, but he seemed healthy. He seemed fine. And then they say one day he got sick and he passed away, right? It's like, could there have been foul play? I mean, maybe, but it's kind of ambiguous, at least at this point. And people are just kind of like, was there foul play? But he just passed away? That was unexpected. It's like that exact same thing, that exact same feeling, that exact same vibe, that exact same whatever. It's like, I saw that for Trump. And then it happens not long later to this guy who I think is such a symbol of the establishment Republican Party, okay? And so I'm like, I hope that he knew Jesus. I hope that despite any flaws in his character or flaws in policy that he may have had, it's like I hope that in those last moments that he repented, that he was like, something's going on, Jesus, I need you, I want you. And then even if he's in, like I said, I don't want ill will to human beings, because the fight is not against flesh and blood, but there's beings, principalities, entities, demons, fallen angels. There's all kinds of things in which there's a greater thing going on, right? So once again, Republican, Democrat, left, right, believer, non-believer, I love you. I want you to know Jesus. I want you to be connected to your source, your creator, to have, that deep connection, fulfillment, and just the things that I've experienced. It's like I want everyone to have a taste of that. Anyways, but yeah, so this happens. And once again, when I make these videos, I'm not trying to, it's not like I'm trying to keep a scorecard of like, look what I got right, look what I predicted. Because I didn't predict that for Lindsey Graham, I didn't. I'm just trying to say, like, notice these patterns. Like, you have like the fact, the piece of data, the data point or whatever, if you want to call it, that may not be the right term, but like you have what happened to Lindsey Graham, and here I am being like, whoa, like I saw a pattern for that, like I saw that scenario in a dream but with someone else, but you're in that same kind of sphere and you're related, and you as a person in that political office represent that thing. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm connecting here? Like when I saw that, I was just like, whoa, that's really, really interesting. So once again, no credit to me, nothing that I predicted it. It's not about that. I'm just trying to speak forth these things that whoever listens would be able to hear it, that whoever listens would be like, just want to pay attention, be like, God, what are you doing in the world? Where's my place in it? And how do I pray? How do I get connected to you? Not just so that we can do things for God, whether in like a missionary or evangelistic kind of way, and not even do things for God in like a prayer kind of way, but to be like, okay, God, but like this world is so interesting and vast, and like, you are God, you are Yahweh, you're, and Jesus was, your son, you in the flesh, this, you came and you died for us, and you shed your blood for us, and it provided a bridge, a way to reconnect with you. And sure, there may be a lot of questions as to how that worked. I'm not going to go into theology rabbit trail right now, but it's just like that feeling of like, he would sacrifice himself, he would become one of us, and that we're connected, and that there's this battle between good versus evil. There's demons and these fallen entities and evil spirits and fallen angels and whatever, and they don't like humanity, and they've embedded themselves in human culture, human civilization, human governments, and they want to push forward agendas and policies and things that go against human life, that go against existence itself. There's a battle for existence, okay? That's the, I know I'm preaching right now, but like that's the thing that I'm going to preach. It's more so than any of these little things I've been talking about, but it's like, get plugged into understanding what that battle for existence is and be like, all right, God, what did you have in mind for existence? Like, existence is good. It's like the name Yahweh, the Yod, He, Vav, He in Hebrew. It means I am, it means existence. But then if you break apart the letters of the name of Yahweh, it means behold the hand, behold the nail. It's a prophecy of Jesus. encoded in all existence is Jesus. All things were created through him, by him, for him. All things were created. Okay, so it's like my plea to people, like what my heart wants, is for everybody to get connected to their Creator, to get connected to Jesus, to know him and to spend time with him, to have fun with him, and then from there, not to feel like he's a taskmaster, not to feel like he's, you know, overburdening you with assignments and things to do, but that you naturally want to partner with him in this adventure of existence, and to, just as a natural byproduct of your love and relationship with him, you end up being a vessel for him, and doing, you know, what you were created to do, because you're created to be in relationship, and then everything else just overflows from that. That's what I want this to be. When I talk about dreams and experiences, when I talk about seeing Jesus, not just in dreams, but like out of body, like I think sometimes people forget when I talk about that I've seen Jesus, it's like that third time I saw him, it was more real than this reality. I can't explain it. Like everything was more tangible in the tangible realm, you know, whatever that means, right? And so it's like, but like that, and then like seeing demons get cast out of people, and then all this other stuff, and plenty of you watching have had experiences like this. And it's not just about the experiences, but what do the experiences point to? The experiences point to that there's a real and living God that wants to connect with you, that wants to know you, but you have the choice and option to know him. So anyways, I'll get off that soapbox. I just get really passionate about it, and I think God loves passionate people, and I want to encourage passion in all of you to be passionate for the things of God. Yeah, I think the political stuff, especially about America, is the stuff that I like talking about the least, but it's definitely very important. But yeah, I think that things are on the move, especially if you've been following the channel and paying attention to the videos, especially that 4th of July video. I think we're seeing something on the move, and I think there's other people in the spirit like realm catching this stuff, being like, okay, God, what are you really doing? And yeah, that's just what I want to put forth, speak forth, and encourage people to pray, and encourage people to just be connected to God. That's all I want. So if you like what you hear, if you like this channel, Surrendered Vision, as I've said before, that's just what I want to be, is having surrendered vision to God. If you like what you see, please subscribe, so you can, and turn on any kind of notifications so you can stay up to date with what we're talking about and what we're doing. And like and comment and share and do all that YouTube stuff to help out the channel. But most importantly, like I've been saying, just pray and seek God and start talking to him. Even start yelling at him and use cuss words, because that doesn't offend him. He's the most secure being in the universe. Tell him how you really feel. He already knows, but he's like, but will you come forward and tell me how you feel? Do you want to talk to me? Like, that's what he's looking for. Like, he's looking for honesty and sincerity and authenticity. And you may sincerely believe something, but that doesn't make it right. But you can also sincerely go to him and be like, this is how I feel. This is what I believe. I don't know why I'm talking to you, but I just feel like I need to. Man, you have no idea. If you just start pulling on that thread, you have no idea what's going to happen. And he likes that. He really does, actually. He's just like, all right, someone's really willing to talk to me and really tell me how they feel. Let's do it. Right? So anyways, I know this video, like my last one about Yemen, has gone on a little longer than usual. I don't know if this will become the norm. I just know that there's some times where when I make these, we need to maybe slow down, at least for me, really get some stuff off my chest, and also really slow down and yeah, just talk about and give us time to digest and consume some of the content being talked about. But I do want to have other videos that are a bit more fast-paced, like my other ones, simply to get the bullet points out there of things I've seen or experienced, and to let you all meditate and pray and you know, see what that means for you or for the world, or how to incorporate that into your life or into prayer, to take those principles and extract them. So yeah, went a little long again, but that's okay. I'm gonna make a lot of other stuff too. Once again, follow, subscribe, share, like, comment, all that other stuff. But pray. Just talk to him. It's good. He's a good God. He's fun, too. He's really interesting. If you really allow him to, he'll talk to you about some really, really interesting stuff. So, thank you for watching. Get off of this video now. Get off YouTube. And then go talk to God about interesting stuff. So thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I really do appreciate it, for you making it this far to the end of the video. See you guys next time. Bye.